Hello, I'm Liz.
And I'm Jamie.
Welcome to Follow the Boat, in which we discuss what it's really like to give it all up to live on a boat.
And go travelling around the world. We've been doing it since 2006 and we're still at it.
Each week we talk about our latest YouTube video.
And about boats, sailing, travel or anything else which floats into our heads.
And if you leave a comment we like, we'll give you an answer and a name check. Peace and fair winds. Hello, Jamie Furlong, and welcome to my video podcast.
Oh yes, yours. You are kind of in control of this, aren't you? This is your little project.
Yes, little.
Your podcast project.
Yeah, well, you do the main one. I think everyone appreciates and knows that you do really our videos every week. I chip in here and there. I do the thumbnails and I get involved a little bit in the shooting and a little bit in the editing, but it's your baby. And I'm very happy to go along with it. And I thought, well, maybe I ought to step up a bit and do something else. So I suggested to you that we do these video podcasts because I thought that's fairly easy. It's just going to be two heads chatting and we'll stick some cameras up. But really it's about the podcast.
But we should, yes, we should make the point, yes. I think, that we are not jumping on the podcast bandwagon, folks, because we have already published about 80 podcasts.
We have. It's in another life.
In another life. I mean, it was, I looked, the last one was exactly a decade ago.
Really?
10 years ago was our last podcast.
And we were in India.
We were. So our last series of podcasts took us from Turkey to India and then around India. And of course, this was before we were doing videos.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we just had the blog.
Yeah.
So, that was great. In fact, you can still listen to them, can't you, on the website?
Yeah, they're still on followtheboat.com. And then if you look at the main menu under blog, I think that all the podcasts are there.
Okay, so it's not a straightforward /forward thing podcast.
I don't remember.
We'll put a link below.
It's in the main menu anyway.
All right, so that's good. So they can still listen to those. A very, very young Jamie and Liz.
Yes. And
it was a really, really interesting bit because we sail through the Red Sea at the height of the Somalian piracy, don't
2010.
We? Yeah, and we hear attacks. We actually did we record an attack?
I think we recorded the tail end of one of the skippers of the big tankers being boarded.
Yeah.
Or at least the response from the Naval Task Force.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
And that ship that got boarded happened 30 miles up the coast in the direction we were going in.
Yeah.
So it was very close, yeah. I mean, they were really good fun, those podcasts.
Yeah, they were. You said they were quite hard to edit.
They're hard to edit because if you've only got audio, you've got no point of reference.
Yeah.
You see, with video, you can cut, you can see. But anyway.
So this is going to be easier for me because I'll be able to watch us and I'll be able to chop us, change us around.
But I think also, more importantly, I think it's good that you have a creative outlet because you're a creative person yourself, like myself. And you need that creative outlet because I think with the videos, you just end up doing all the admin.
Yeah, I do. Bit of a sore point, but let's not go there. I do a lot of the admin. And I think a lot of the people who are watching this, if anyone watches it at all, will recognise that it's me who normally answers the comments.
No, that's not true. I do. By the way,
really?
Did you remember to feed the ducks?
Oh, God. Hello, ducks. These are our little ducks that live here in the marina, but of course, They'll shut up in a minute and I will feed them, but they've had 3 feeds today.
Yes.
They have actually had 3.
They tend not to shut up until you feed them, that's the problem. They're just going to be in the background annoying us.
I think, is it going to be too loud? Nah, it'll be all right.
I think it'll be all right. Why don't you just feed them anyway? I'll just...
No, I'm not going to let you take control of my
podcast.
Oh, okay. But it's probably a good time to explain where we are. I mean, we're in the cockpit of Esper, and that's where I'm hoping we'll be able to record every single podcast, but further than just the cockpit. Explain where we are.
Yeah, so if you are new to us, if you've just stumbled across this podcast, of course, we have a YouTube channel we've been running for many years now. So I think the YouTube viewers will know where we are, but we are essentially on the northwest coast of Malaysian Borneo, and we have been here
since God was a child.
Yes. Due to the pandemic. We have been here now for 2 years.
Yeah, we arrived from Sarawak, which is another Malaysian state on the island of Borneo, we sailed up the coast. We got into Sabah in January in 2020, and at that stage we were heading towards the Philippines, and this was going to be a stop on the way, an interesting stop on the way to the Philippines, wasn't it?
We were that close.
Yes.
We were that close to getting to the Philippines.
Yeah.
And so, so the idea is that our plan was, and it still is, 2 years later, Philippines and Japan. That's what we're trying to do.
That has been trying to get to Japan for about 5 years. We will get there.
Yes.
I've got contacts there already. I've got lots of great ideas. It's going to be great, but that's a long way off yet. So here we are, still stuck in Sabah, and here we are doing podcasts. Now, the other reason I wanted to do podcasts is that I wanted us to be able to do something that was close to reality, to real time, right now. So I'm just going to look at my watch. It is now 2:25 p.m. on the 18th of January 2022 as we record this, and we will try and do it roughly the same time each week, because of course the vlogs that come out every week, they are quite often a while away, aren't they?
Yeah, and it's something I think a lot of viewers got miffed about, not just with us. I mean, I've seen it on social media, viewers getting annoyed with sailing channels who are a year out of date. Well, I have to say, the last episode that just went up, 285, which was us getting to Sipadan, that was recorded 2.5 months ago. But next episode is going to be 286, that's in Sipadan, which is very exciting. We'll maybe talk about that in a moment. But after that, we're actually very close to real time in our video vlogs.
Yeah, we're getting closer and closer, aren't we?
But I think it's a good idea to do these podcasts because, as you say, they are closer to real time and they help put in perspective what we're up to. But I think also it would be, I hope, interesting to viewers and listeners to us sort of talk off the record, to have an informal dialogue that we wouldn't normally have on camera.
Yeah, so that quite often in our vlogs we talk to camera, we sit next to each other and we talk to things, we announce the next thing, we chat briefly about something, we answer comments, but they tend to be a little bit scripted. We know roughly what we're going to say.
Yep.
We've picked out things beforehand, so, but this is different. This is you and me actually talking. Are they going to see how we really talk to each other?
We rarely talk to each other.
Yeah, we try not to.
This is uncomfortable.
Looking at each other in the eyes.
Oh, that's what you look like.
Yeah. Well, I'm just hoping that, this, warts and all, I'm not going to do too much editing on this.
No editing, except from the odd aeroplane that might go over, because we're quite close to the airport at the moment.
We are. Yeah.
But hopefully in the future we'll be doing these from anchor as we make our way to...
Yes, dang, dang, dang.
We cannot say at the moment.
Yeah, because although we've been complaining and whinging, as our Australian friends like to say, for a while now about being stuck here, and I'll get onto that in a minute, we can see some light at the end of the tunnel, can't we? And we hope that next month we'll be on our way. What do you say about that then?
Yeah.
Do you think we will?
I think so. And
do you really think?
It's a long time coming. Yeah. There are a number of boats here, all in the same situation, who've been stuck here. And we won't go into too much detail, but basically Malaysia has had one of the strictest lockdowns, and part of the problem is that we can't leave. We can't come back into Malaysia.
Yeah, so we've been able to leave, but we couldn't get back.
We couldn't get back,
and we didn't want to leave Esper here.
Yes, I think we have to make that clear. Yeah. We know people who left Malaysia, left their boat, some at anchor, and then couldn't get back to their boat for 12, 18 months. And there's no way we are prepared to leave the boat on our own anywhere.
If we'd left at the beginning of all this and gone to see your mum and dad, if we'd gone back to the UK, we'd still be there. We'd be living out of a suitcase on people's floors because your parents would have kicked us out by now. No one would have wanted us. We'd have been totally and utterly stuck with Esper here at the marina, costing us an arm and a leg.
Yes, exactly.
Can you imagine? We made the right decision not to go,
Yeah.
We definitely did.
So much better to be stuck on Esper, sometimes in a marina, sometimes when we're lucky to go out to anchor up and down the coast. Much better to do that than to just not be on the boat at all. Yeah,
and I know a lot of sailing channels are sailing. And we have been asked, well, why aren't you sailing? So this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to address and explain why we're not sailing. We're not in America or in Europe where borders are open. You can freely go around. Okay, you might have to have a certificate, you might have to be quarantined, but you can go anywhere.
Yeah.
You cannot do that in Southeast Asia.
So neighbouring Brunei, closed. Philippines closed. Japan closed. Taiwan closed. Thailand, it's very up and down. Maybe talk about that in a minute. But yeah, it's been difficult. And of course, let's not forget, we are trying to travel from west to east. So we've done Thailand, we've done Peninsular Malaysia, we've done Sumatra.
Don't want to go back there.
We're trying to head in an easterly direction, or a northeasterly direction.
So Indonesia is the other country you didn't mention, and it has been completely closed throughout the whole thing. But last year, the end of last year, it started to open.
Yes. And in fact, isn't Sailing Nanji, one of the other YouTube channels who were in Malaysia?
Yes.
They got a window, I think, didn't they, to get through to Indonesia.
Last year.
Yeah, so they did the right thing there and then.
Yeah. They went down Sumatra, the same route that we've already done, and I believe they had done it previously, so they knew what they let themselves in for. But of course, for them, they want to get back to Australia. I understand. I might be wrong, but I think they want to get back to Australia, and that will be perfect for them.
Well, and also they had the opportunity to go to Banda in Sumatra, I think, to check in there. Here in northwest Borneo, it was much more difficult to try and get into Indonesia, and of course, this is still kind of going in the wrong direction that we wanted to go in. You know, it's going south, east, rather than northeast. So, hopefully that kind of very quickly summarises where we are now.
And we think we have a resolution, but we're not going to talk about it on camera now. I don't want to jinx it, because, what is it? I mean, the time scale is about 3 weeks, I think, time scale. So if we are a bit antsy and a bit strange, it's because we're hopping around just hoping and getting everything ready, getting the boat ready, doing all that.
Yeah.
So that's where we are right now.
So what have you been doing on the boat to get it ready?
Well, the most important thing that I've done probably in the last 6 months is I've taken both my fishing reels in to the fishing shop, and I've had the spools re-spooled with brand new braid, because when we leave here, I'm going to be fishing like buggery every day, and I need to, because we are going to be eating fish. We need to fill up our new freezer.
Oh yes, freezer. Well, that's what I've been doing, is experimenting with our freezer. We have it's a portable freezer, isn't it? One that you can move around, you can plug into 12 volt. It's an insulated box, so it's quite a different system to what we have installed on the boat for our fridge, which is all temperature controlled. And so we're just getting our heads around, because obviously it's not it's difficult, because you don't want to leave it on all the time, because it consumes too much power.
But we are getting a new lithium batteries as well, aren't we?
They're being shipped right this moment. They are somewhere down the coast at sea. So we're hoping the new lithium batteries should come in. And by the way, we are getting new lithium batteries, not to replace our old ones, but in addition to add on, just to expand our capacity a little, to allow us to run a second fridge system.
But you'll probably talk about that a bit more when they arrive and you install them. We'll talk about that in a bit more detail.
I think so.
Yeah, and we'll talk about the whole fridge situation as well in a bit more detail.
Are you going to feed those ducks?
Do you want me to do?
I think you should feed the
I'm
ducks.
going to go feed the ducks. Okay, so now we've got some full ducks, we can carry on. They might start again, we don't know, but that's it, that's their last feed. So, going back to one of the reasons we're doing this, the reason for doing this is to talk about the previous blog.
Yep.
Vlog.
The
I
vlog.
keep saying blog, it's a vlog.
Vlog.
Yes, the blog vlog. So the previous one was 285, which hopefully most people will have seen. They can read about it and on our blog, and they can watch the video on YouTube. Mm-hmm. And we have found that we have really good audience who do engage with everything that we do, and we get lots and lots of comments. And people, I hope, will notice that we do always try to answer them as much as possible, but quite often the comments involve quite a lot of thought, and we don't always have time. So with the podcast, I'm hoping is that we can address some of those issues. But just going back to 285, what's your comment on 285? What do you think about it? Was it any good? Did you like doing it?
What I was hoping came across. If you haven't seen it, it's us getting to Sipadan from Kota Kinabalu, which is across the state of Sabah, It's 11-hour drive if you were to do it in one go.
Yeah, I suppose it's across the whole of the north of Borneo, isn't it?
Through the mountains, through the palm plantations. It's a long trip.
Yeah.
But I think what I was trying to get across was the state of the tourism industry having only just opened after a 2-year hiatus. The fact that these hotels should have been ready for us turning up on their doorstep, having supposedly booked, although they didn't have record of our booking in a couple of places.
No, they didn't.
And they weren't really ready for us. And I found that it was a bit disappointing, wasn't it? But when we got to Sabah, of course, or Kapalai Dive Resort, that was the...
Oh, that was a whole different
That
story.
was perfect.
The staff there are absolutely phenomenal.
Incredible.
Yeah, the people who look after the rooms, the people in the kitchen, front of house, the dive staff, of course, were phenomenal. We had a 3-man team who became best friends.
And we should explain that although this resort has a capacity of, I don't know, let's say 100 guests, maybe more, we were the only people there, with Sharon and Lindsay of Sailing Vessel Songlines 3, who we frequently dive with. In fact, it was Lindsay who came up with the idea.
He found this deal.
He found a
absolutely
deal,
ridiculously cheap
and
deal.
he said to us we should take advantage of this because at the time, and even actually still now, international tourism hasn't happened in Malaysia because the borders are still closed. So we chose a time when there was no one there.
No, I know. I don't think any people... How many people ever get that opportunity? Maybe if you're royalty and you can take out the whole thing to yourself.
Yeah.
But when we were in Sabah last year, because we went there when we did our mini rally all the way around Borneo, Sabah, we went to Sabah then, and it was full of people, and there were dive boats everywhere. And you were down below. I was snorkeling, and you could see everybody. So you get an idea of just how busy it can be if you look at that previous video. And you have to book a slot. And you have to do it in advance. It's 2 months in advance to get your slot, to get onto the boat, to get to Sabah. With us, just turn up, rock up, Sabah the next day.
It was amazing.
I know, but we're preempting ourselves because that's in next week.
Episode 286 is all about that. And I have to say, episode 286 has been one of my most favourite episodes, not only to edit, but also to watch back on, because I'll be honest, as soon as I've done an episode, I watch it through for errors and issues, technical issues, and then that's it, it's done, it's put to bed, I move on to the next one. But these last two are ones that I can just look back on, and
I couldn't agree more. I mean, when you'd finished these two, particularly the Sabah one next week, it was like reliving it. And in fact, a lot of our videos are like that, because when we're a long way in advance, we did that. It's like when we went to the mountains and some of our sailing, and sometimes I look back on some of the sailing we've done and I can't believe that we went through that kind of weather and experienced those things. But anyway, God, yes. But let's leave that one. Let's go back to 285. So for me, it was a video of two halves. It's the road trip from hell. Maybe that's being a bit strong. And then getting to Kapalai in the first dives. And for me, for the road trip, because I always I book everything. Booking those hotels was a bloody nightmare to begin with, because nobody answered my emails. They didn't really want me to be. They didn't want us. They were just quite happy where they were. And that reminds me of when we went to the mountains earlier, when we were allowed to go as far as the middle, and we stayed in that place. And you were talking to the owner about what it was like.
oh yes,
Do you remember?
the guy that said, I'll be honest, I preferred it when there were no guests in my hotel.
I get the impression that that's the case in a lot of hotels.
Yeah.
It's much easier for me, because I used to work in shops. It was exactly the same. No customers, bloody public. They screw everything up. It's much easier without them. But yeah, so it was hard. It was a bit of a shock, really, because I did think they had some warning in the hotels that they were going to open up. I was really hoping they would have been a bit more on the ball, particularly with what's gone on the last 2 years in Sabah.
Yeah, so some things I can appreciate they might not have had ready for us. Perhaps, if you had special dietary requirements and you're visiting a hotel up in the mountains, it's difficult for them to get to a shop to buy various types of food. That I can accept. But just not being prepared for us turning up at all, not only not having a room ready, but actually having no record of our booking. And then there was one place where we had breakfast and all there was sliced white bread and a toaster. That's right, you had to put the sliced white bread in your toaster. And I did say to one of the waiters, I said, could we have some butter? He said, oh, we don't have butter. And I said, well, you've got jam, you know, where's the butter?
You've got white bread.
I'm supposed to be toasting my own toast here with your jam, so where's the butter? And he said, oh, we've I can't remember what his excuse was, but basically it was that we've not been able to get any. Well, they're 10 minutes away from Sandakan, one of the biggest cities in Sabah. There was no excuse for it.
So we can get butter, they can.
There were little things like that which sound like they're not even worth mentioning, but
No,
they just niggle you, and especially when we've been driving for hours and hours and hours, and you just want to get there and just have everything sorted.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, talking about white bread and butter, we sound like fucking Brits abroad, don't we? We sound like Brits abroad. And to be honest, we don't normally eat, we do regularly eat local food.
Yes, it was just an example.
Yes,
because there was nothing else for breakfast except, I think, perhaps eggs.
Yeah, they didn't offer any local food.
So, that, you know, and this is a place where breakfast is included, so you would expect something. And I think my frustration was that, you know, they've been closed all this time and now they've opened up. So they're wanting people to turn up.
Yeah.
And then when you do, you're just not ready for them. And that's the thing that annoyed me the most.
Yes, it's the inability to understand how to serve and make people welcome and all that, which is quite a recurring theme.
Yeah, you've made me sound like a moany old git now. I didn't want to necessarily dwell on the negatives.
We are a moany old git. We're going on about
true.
miserable, moody, old git.
You can talk.
I have
cheeky
my moments.
car.
Yeah, I do have my moments. Yeah, so it was annoying, but then we did think about what's happened in Sabah since we've been here for the last 2 years. With the closure of the ports, there's been no international tourism, and with the states closed as well, there's been no statewide tourism, and all those people that had the jobs in that industry suddenly unemployed, and there's no safety nets here. It's not like
there's no furlough systems or you know, signing up. Well, I don't think there is. Anyway.
And a lot of people live here hand to mouth. A lot of people don't, you know, at the sort of quite basic end of things. They don't really have bank accounts. They live on their paychecks in very simple circumstances. Suddenly, all taken away from them. So we have had massive poverty here, and we've had big problems with lack of food. The state has done what it can, but it has been a huge problem. So,
but didn't you say that you were talking to Rick, the marina manager?
Yeah.
And of course they've had to lay off. So we should say that Sutra Harbour Marina and the two neighbouring hotels, which is all part of the same complex, at the peak of their tourism period, they were employing close to 1,700 staff. They are the biggest employer in Kota Kinabalu. And of course, after the pandemic hit, they had to lay off a lot of staff. Well, now they're opening up again, and Rick's been trying to get back some of his staff. And he's been having problems because during this period, these people who were laid off have gone back to their villages, you know, outside of KK, back to their families, and they've realised that they actually prefer the lifestyle back home with the family.
Yeah, because so the thing I remember him saying was that they're getting paid less. They don't get the money that they get here, but they don't have the overheads.
Yeah.
The overheads are practically nothing.
Because they're not having to travel into KK.
Or live here or anything like that. So back in the village, back with the family. This is the Sabahans who live outside in villages. It's different for other people, but mainly they're finding they've got a better quality of life. It's just like my hairdresser here, lovely Ruby, whose family are all from the right interior part of Sabah, which is quite difficult to get to. She said they all went back and they all love it, and they're eating well because you've got fruit, animals, you've got everything you could possibly want, you know, to keep, and fresh water. It's the tropics, you know, it's got everything. So a lot of them have realised, actually, do I want that rat race life? No, I don't. I think I'll stay here. And who can blame them?
But this is happening internationally. This is happening in the West. It's happening in the UK. We have friends who, of course, ended up having to work from home.
Yes.
And it turns out that actually people are preferring to work from home because they don't have the, as you say, it's the overheads, and especially if you're living or working in somewhere like London, you don't have that commute.
Yeah.
Suddenly you're not having to commute, and that's a you know, to not have to do that, that's a bonus, isn't it?
Yeah,
and you get to spend more time with your family as well.
Yes.
I mean, I know both my brothers have been working from home now for the last 18 months or so, are seeing far more of their children than they ever were previously.
Yeah. It's going to be a revolution, isn't it? I think more people are going to be like us. They're going to look at alternative ways of living, alternative lifestyles.
Now, as I understand it, the sale of second-hand boats is going up.
Really?
Since the pandemic.
Yeah.
And I first heard this and I thought it was just a made-up rumour, but no, it's been proved to be true. And I think it's as a result of, as we say, people who have 9-to-5 jobs are now reassessing what they
there
want to
are
do
other
with
ways
their
of living.
lives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there are different things, aspects of life that are important to you. Maybe family is more important. Maybe just trying to get a bigger car is not the thing you want to do anymore. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens over the coming years. Of course, hope not too many people want to go sailing and, you know, clog up the oceans. That's a bit. Right, so I'm going to go back to 285. There aren't any particular comments that I wanted to bring out necessarily, but I was quite interested in just saying this. Andre, what the hell are you sailors? Sorry, I'll say that again. Andre, what the hell are you sailors or tourists? And this is something that is a perennial. He said it is a joke.
Yes.
Which is
He's a regular for you, isn't he?
Yes, it's great. But this is something that we get all the time, as do many other YouTube sailing channels. But you're not sailing. You're not saying we're not seeing any sailing. What do you say to them? Go on, now's your chance. Say to me what you want to say. I know.
I would say that being a liveaboard cruiser is a lifestyle. I think a lot of the people that watch sailing channels are either weekend sailors, perhaps they don't sail at all, they just like the excitement of the actual sailing. But of course a lot of the YouTube sailing channels are people like us, they are liveaboard cruisers. So their whole lifestyle is about living on a boat, but it is not about sailing every day.
That's right.
Now,
I agree.
of course it does depend on where you are in your travels. So there are periods of time when we are doing nothing but sailing and travelling from island to island.
Yep.
And so it can give the appearance that you are sailing every day. However, I would say sailing makes up 5, maybe 10% of your time on the boat.
And I think if most liveaboard cruisers were to be honest, I'd say the same.
Yep.
It's very easy on a YouTube channel that covers 20 minutes a week
Yep.
to make it look like
Absolutely.
you're sailing all the time.
Yeah.
There's lots of ways to manipulate what it's like. So yeah, it's very small.
And you asked about being a tourist, and I say to that, yes, absolutely, we are tourists.
Yeah.
And I think we are kidding ourselves if we think we're anything other than tourists as we travel through different countries. And I always say, to be a local, you either have to marry one, you have to learn the local language, and you have to have residency. And that's pretty much being a local. Unless you do that, you'll always only ever be a tourist.
Yeah, I mean that's what they say in Liverpool if you come there from London. You know, you're just a visitor. You're not one of us.
Yeah.
So, absolutely true. So thank you, Andre. We are tourists. We're happy to be tourists, and we'll do the sailing when we can. And David Johnston on FGB Mates, one of our regular contributors, he asked a lot of questions, but what he did say here was, what do you do when the weather is bad and not actively sailing? Do you hold up on the boat and edit videos, read, play games, go ashore? Do you have air conditioning on your boat? And how do you deal with the humidity and mould? Okay, well forget the second bits, but the first bit is, what do you do when the weather's bad and you're not actively sailing? Well, as you've just said, most of the time we're not actively sailing. And it's like saying somebody lives in a house. Well, what do you do when you're not living in your... It's like living in a house, but we're on the water. What do you do all day?
Yes.
What are all the different things you do? We probably do similar ones, you know, watch films, read books.
Well, we could write a book. We do get told we should write a book.
Been talking about it a long time, never done it. So yeah, you have to have some kind of interest, and in fact that is one little thing that we do say to anyone who wants to do this. You need an interest. And for us, it started off as you started it really with the blogging. before I knew you were blogging, and then we turned it to podcast, and I got enjoyed doing that.
And that came about because I enjoyed writing and of course photography, and that's continued throughout. You know, my personal passion is photography. Something that I've actually rekindled, because I found actually with doing the videos, the photography was getting sidelined. And I ended up just becoming like a production factory of churning out video after video, and I realised I was starting to lose the enjoyment of picking up a camera. So for me, it's photography. But yes, as you say, it's important. Well, we think it's important to have outside interests.
And what we've seen is that people that don't have those, they tend to end up stuck somewhere. Drink becomes a huge problem. If you've not got anything outside, you've got to do something. So drinking is a big problem, which leads me on to another thing that David asked, was how's your giving up drinking going?
It's going well. It's
2 thumbs up.
Yeah, I'm into my second year. It's been 12 months since quitting drinking.
And do you think you'll keep it going?
Well, put it this way, I don't miss it, which is and I have given up drinking before. I actually quit drinking when I was 18. Believe it or not, I stopped drinking when I was 18.
Just did drugs.
For 4 years. And I didn't miss it then, and I don't miss it now. I think it's something that we were thinking about, talking about to camera on our vlog, on our YouTube channel.
I think we should.
There is a strong correlation between drinking and sailing.
Just want to put everyone's minds at ease that I do still drink. At least one of us is drinking alcohol. I'm not a huge drinker. I mean, I don't do a case of beers a night like you could do in the old days, but I do like my whiskey and I like my wine, and I will have a few, and if there's a party, I'll drink too much.
I have a few bottles of single malt still tucked away, so never say never.
I gave up vaping and smoking, so that at least I was giving something up.
But I don't want to come across as all preachy and do a video on why giving up drinking is important, but we did think it would be quite good fun to do almost like a historical look at sailing and drinking, because the two are so closely bound together. You know, pirates with their bottles of rum, what should we do with the drunken sailor?
Well, I did a bit of research and they're definitely entwined, so when I actually start to shape that into something, then maybe that's what we need to do.
I think that could be a fun video to do.
What else on 285? Was there anything in particular on 285 that we need to think about? The last video that went up,
well, the
first one of the year.
Okay, the only thing I'd like to say is that, of course, it ends up becoming about diving. It's the getting there, and then it becomes about diving. And 286, as we said, is a fully fledged diving episode. It's all about diving. And again, I think some people might say, well, I'm only into sailing, or perhaps I'm only into sailing and travel, I'm not interested in the diving. And it did get me thinking, our lifestyle is about living on the ocean, on the surface. And what I've found fascinating is learning about the world in which we live above, i.e. underwater. And that for me has just been a fascination. And learning the habitat, the lifestyle, the names of all those different creatures that
I've got to thank you.
When we anchor on top of this world that we know nothing about, and you go diving, you start to get an understanding of that, and that for me has just been a fascination. And I think perhaps quite important as well to have an appreciation of the environment in which we are sailing and living on.
And as I was about to say, I've got to thank you, because I did it years ago, but because of your newfound excitement at doing it, it seemed to make sense that I could join you and be your buddy, so that wherever we can go diving together. And you're absolutely right, I fell in love with it again, and your pictures and your videos really bring it alive. So so there you go, that's another string to our bow, isn't it? And of course there's my fishing, which takes precedence over everything.
Are you gonna bore us for 10 minutes about what you've been doing lately?
Well, I'll tell you what, I won't bore you about fishing if you don't bore me about photography. So, young man, young lady, young man, what are you doing this afternoon? It's only lunchtime.
Oh, going back to the freezer, the new freezer, trying to work out how long it can stay on for, how long it can't. Not very interesting, I'm afraid.
Well, I'm going to spend the afternoon editing this, and hopefully we'll get it up tomorrow.
Look forward to it.
Marvellous.
Is that it?